CPAC Now, America UnCanceled. Joining me today is the former acting commissioner of Customs and Border Protection and Heritage Foundation visiting fellow. Quite frankly, he should be CPAC's visiting fellow. I'll go work on that immediately. Mark Morgan, thank you for joining me in this very important Newsweek. Another assassination attempt against Donald Trump. I mean, can you just believe this? What's going on?
Yeah, Mercy, first of all, it's great to be on with you as always. I think one of the key adjectives you just use is another. Can you believe it? If you would have asked me a few days after the first assassination attempt, if the Secret Service, and I'm referring to the leadership here, not the rank and file, but the leadership of the Secret Service would let yet another shooter get within a couple hundred yards of the president, I would have laughed and said, they're never gonna allow that to happen again. Yet here we are, just over 60 days later. It's unconscionable. And once again, I think this illustrates a colossal failure of the leadership of the FBI. Of the Secret Service.
I got to ask you this because CPAC put out a statement basically saying that, look, President Trump should have the full protective detail in the same way Joe Biden has full protection Secret Service detail. Why is it that that hasn't been implemented already, knowing that there are these continual threats, not only domestic threats, but assassination threats coming from countries like Iran against Donald Trump?
Yeah, Mercy, look, that's the question. And like you said, we already know. So he's a former president. He's a current GOP presidential candidate. As you said, there's already been one assassination attempt. We know Iran is trying to kill him. He's probably the most recognizable man on the face of the planet. Those are all genuine, realistic, significant threats. Here's why I really believe this is one of the cultural issues and also the methodology issue of the Secret Service. They base their protection protocols on categories rather than threats. The category meaning, are you the current president versus the former president, a family member? Those are all category based. Now, of course, they consider threats, but they always default first to what is the category? What's their title? That is the wrong approach. Look, after 9/11, we moved from a reactive law enforcement model to a preventative, proactive, threat-based, intelligence-driven, operationally focused model. The Secret Service, in my opinion, they just haven't moved to that pure model of being threat-based, intelligence-driven. If you do, then you would see President Trump getting the highest levels of protection that the Secret Service can offer because of the threats. I don't care if he's a former or not. I would be saying the same thing with President Obama, President Clinton. If they had the same threats that President Trump has, I would be demanding the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. But I do want to get your reaction. President Biden was asked this question about providing protection for President Trump. Take a listen.
I think thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they in fact need more services. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
Are you concerned more money or they need more personnel? They need more money? What kind of help do you say?
I think we need some more personnel. I think they're deciding whether they need more personnel or not.
Are you concerned more
I mean, is it a money problem, a resource problem? What is it?
No, look, Mercy, I'm so frustrated at this. This is the Democratic talking point all the time. When there's a catastrophe, when there's a crisis that they created, and make no mistake, this started at the highest level, Secretary Marcus, especially the second attempt. What is their answer when they screw something up? Just throw more money and more resources at it. That's not the problem. Especially these two assassination attempts. If you look at Butler, that was not a resource issue. That was a leadership issue. The same thing here. Look, it would not, if the Secret Service, the leadership again, would have asked the local PD or county, Mercy, to put officers or sheriff's deputies to actually sweep that line before the fence line, before the president stepped foot on the golf course, or to put deputies along that road and that fence, they would have jumped at it. They would have said, of course we would have done that. These two incidents were not driven by a resource issue. It was absolutely a leadership issue. And there is a little bit of the allocation of their current resources. When you take a look at the number of resources that they have siphoned off to do bank fraud cases and cyber and other white collar type criminal investigations, that's something that has to be looked at as well.
What keeps happening that the FBI, for example, in 2019 went over to the shooter's home, you know, basically asking questions, and then all of a sudden nothing comes out of it? It's always like you keep hearing the same situation happen, not only in the case of this shooter in Mar-a-Lago, but also in even the last school shooting that we've learned, you know, they keep ignoring these signs. What is happening there with the FBI?
Well, in this case, what we know so far, I'm not so much sure that it was an issue that they were ignoring, right? Because, look, I thought that press conference overall yesterday was a disaster, but there were a couple of important...
Why was it a disaster?
Well, a couple of things. One is I think we should have had DHS Secretary Mayorkas there, right? I mean, he's the one that owns this problem. And again, I said that after the first assassination attempt. We have two, and yet who did we have there? Right? We had individuals from the local field offices that were there. I think we should have had representation from the highest levels of their government. We're talking about the second assassination attempt on a former president of the United States, current presidential candidate. I just thought there should have been a higher level of participation. In addition to that, we were provided some information, but we weren't provided a level of information that I think we should have been.
But I will tell you, compared to the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, where I felt that we were stonewalled, like we barely had any press conferences coming out of Secret Service or FBI. And of course, the media just moves off of it. And then you have Kamala Harris making these horrific comments about President Trump. Let's take a listen to a few of these.
Donald Trump is an existential threat to our democracy and our most fundamental freedoms. Remember the chaos, the division, the attacks that took rights and liberties from the American people. We cannot allow that to happen again.
I mean, Mark, it's constant rhetoric from the left. They basically say extreme MAGA Republicans. Trump's a dictator. Trump being compared to Hitler. I mean, it's no wonder that you have these crazies going out and trying to shoot him and kill him.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the rhetoric has literally said that he's a threat to democracy, and then they go on to say, and that's why he should be, quote, eliminated. Look, Mercy, I agree with in the press conference. It was better in the fact that at least they had one.
Right.
Look, the assistant director or the acting director of Secret Service, another issue I had with the press conference, he took no responsibility. He actually said that because it was a OTR, an off the record movement, that the protocols were perfect. They did this was flawless. And I couldn't disagree more. This wasn't flawless. If it hadn't been for the incredible actions of a single Secret Service agent that was able to see a black barrel less than an inch in diameter sticking through a black chain link fence covered by bushes, we would be talking about a dead President Trump. I mean, his ability, that was remarkable. And what I would say is that wasn't a success. That was lucky. I mean, if this shooter, once again, if this shooter would have been, anything other than an amateur that he clearly was, I think President Trump would have been killed. So again, we saw the Secret Service not taking responsibility.
Yeah, I keep saying the same thing, which is that if it were like a real shooter, like a sniper, one of those guys that are like trained assassins, Trump would be dead.
Mercy, you're absolutely right.
And really, like, what really bothers me is you've got the fact that the guy was outside the fence. He had been there since 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning. No one saw him beforehand. And also, how did the guy even know that President Trump was going to be golfing? To your point, this is what they call an OTR movement, which is kind of the off-the-record movement. It's not in the books. So it does raise questions as to, is there something, a coordinated effort, a conspiracy of sorts? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, again, Butler, to your point, that we've virtually got nothing, and I still don't think we've gotten enough, from this incident. Well, it's just that because we got nothing from Butler, so they give us a couple nuggets, and we go, oh, this is great. Well, no, they still haven't given us enough. And when you have that void, it's going to be filled with speculation and conspiracy theories. And this is violation of Crisis Communications 101 that I know you know well. But look, the OTR, I want to really focus on this because I call BS on this, what the acting director of Secret Service is. This wasn't a typical OTR. This wasn't like he was in a motorcade and decided, hey, I want to stop and get a slice of pizza in Brooklyn, New York. Right. This was a facility, this golf, of course, was a facility that he's been using for over a decade. He used as president. He's been using for the last 4 years. The Secret Service, they know this golf course like the back of their hand, Mercy. They know every single issue. Yeah. They know where the vulnerabilities are. In fact, the shooter was able to pick out one of the most vulnerable locations. And again, I'll go back. The fact that they didn't take a few minutes to sweep that fence line, especially on that road in between holes 4, 5, and 6.
Hours before. You do it hours before. They usually sweep these areas before any sort of big presidential event.
Easily. But they go back to, hey, this is the way we've always done it. They go back to that category based approach instead of threat-based approach. It's unacceptable. So I don't accept the OTR approach. But, real quick to your rhetoric issue, look, I fall short of drawing a direct line between the rhetoric and the shooters, but there sure is a strong dash line between that. And I do believe that public officials have a responsibility to be careful and understand that people are listening to what they say. And when you don't focus on the policies and whether you focus on he's a threat to democracy, needs to be eliminated, people that have a few screws loose are going to do what happened.
So one is, I think the left has to knock it off in terms like they have to stop this dangerous rhetoric. They've gone too far. Secondly, I like this idea you were talking about, the threat-based approach, which it seems to be like the Secret Service needs to modernize how and really be thinking 10 steps against what a shooter would be thinking in order to prevent a catastrophe. It seems like they're just working like if they're in the 1990s or so. I don't get it. I don't get it.
No, Mercy, I think you just said it right. In fact, Dan Bongino testified in front of some congressional members just a few weeks ago, and he said exactly what you're saying. And he referred to the technology, right? And he said that they're using yesterday's technology today, right? And I think that's right on the technology. But again, I also think it's right on their methodology. I think they're behind the power curve. And it really should be irrelevant what their title is. It should be based on the threat. I mean, right now, again, President Bush, he went golfing, I understand, a couple of days ago. Well, look, you wouldn't expect this incredible level of resources for him, not because he's not the current sitting president, it's because there's not a current threat against him.
There's not a threat against him,
right?
Yeah. So I got to ask you, because we saw Governor Ron DeSantis at the basically having a press conference saying how Florida is going to be investigating this assassination attempt. I mean, does that make a difference? Is that going to help? I mean, what is that a smart move by the governor? Is it because the FBI is just simply not doing enough?
Look, I think that at the end of the day, this is a result of the American people have lost trust in the Department of Justice. They've lost trust in the FBI. They have no trust in Capitol Hill of anything that they're going to produce. And of course, they don't trust the Secret Service to investigate themselves. So I think I applaud his efforts. The challenge is when a state is going to get involved to do an investigation, it's going to be limited with respect to the information they're going to have access to. But this is exactly why, Mercy, this is a great question, because after the first assassination attempt, I've been strongly calling for an independent commission to be appointed from outside this administration, outside of the Beltway, and made up of subject matter experts with respect to VIP protection. I think if they anointed this independent commission and produced a report, I think the American people would have more trust in that type of report.
Any final thoughts? I'm going to ask you, if you were to be picked as Secretary for Department of Homeland Security under President Trump, I mean, in addition to this independent commission, what else would you recommend to really ensure, look, because these threats are not going away. I mean, this is just going to continue for President Trump. And I mean, it's truly, truly horrific to watch. I know Melania Trump came out with a strong video as well, basically, asking really serious questions to the FBI as to what is going on here. And there's not enough good answers.
There's not. And Mercy, goes back to the other good question you had is, so we have all these dots. So we always talk about, oh, what was the shooter's motivation? Look, that's nice to know. But look, if I was the Secretary of DHS or a part of the FBI or whatever organization is that's great and that's nice to know. But the real fundamental issue that we should be driving towards is taking those dots and connecting them. Right? So what I want to know from these two investigations is, what were those dots? And did we fail as a government to connect the dots? not to react to it after it already happened, but to prevent it. It's the same thing with school shootings. Taking away guns is not going to prevent it.
Yeah.
What we have to do, right, is take all the dots, connect them, and figure out how we're going to prevent the next active shooter. And it's just the same thing in the assassination attempt as well. And I tell you, the last thing I'll say is, honestly, is that we have to take a look at the leadership. When you have stuff like this again and again, what we see in government, Mercy, is that there's leadership. No, everybody stays. Everybody keeps their job.
Yeah.
How is that? How can you have 2 assassination attempts, 2 shooters get within a couple of hundred yards of the president, yet not a single leader is actually held accountable other than the former director voluntarily stepping down?
Great point. They should be outraged at the Secret Service knowing that they really have not been able to get a better process in place, but hopefully they will provide at some point full protective detail to President Trump. Anyways, I ask good questions. You give great answers. It's always a pleasure to have you on with us here at CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. Mark Morgan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
All right, gang, thanks so much for watching. And of course, stay in close contact with us and stay connected. Go to cpac.org. And of course, download us wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. We're there to give you all the updates and what's happening in this mad, mad world. Thank you and God bless.